Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Nahmaduhu wa nusalli ala rasulihil kareem. Some of you had been asking me to produce videos on Arabic vocabulary for quite a long time. I was waiting for a time when we were all comfortable with basic Arabic grammar terminology. And as the things stand now, we have covered quite a bit of Arabic terminology. So I think now is the time to start working on our vocabulary while we continue with grammar lessons at the same time. Know that we all are familiar with roots and patterns system in Arabic. It should not be too hard to get good grip of certain concepts in Arabic vocabulary, inshallah. We are going to look at a certain combination of words which give similar meanings and then their opposites as well, depending on the context these words are used in. I have selected our theme for today, the meaning of the word raise in English, raising or to raise, and its similars and its opposites. I have two words here, rafa'a and ansha'a. The root, we know that 99% of words in Arabic have three-letter root. So the root of this word is rafa'ain and the root of this word is noon, sheen, hamza. This hamza is extra here in this case. There's no extra letter here. In this case, there is this extra letter here, which is the first hamza, is extra. Now, rafa'a and ansha'a. It means to raise, to elevate, to lift, that kind of meaning. And both these are verb. This is verb and this is also verb. Although we have not really studied verb so far, but we used a verb right at the beginning of our Arabic lessons when we said Hamid helped Zaid. That's the verb which was used in this sentence was Nasara. So Hamid helped Hamid helped Zaid. Okay. So we translated this as Nasara Hamidun Zaidan. Okay, so we've got this fail there. We've got noun and noun here, and if we look carefully, we'll see that Nasara is exactly the same pattern as Rafa. This Nasara here is exactly the same pattern as that of Rafa. So now that we are familiar with our two charts of Arabic pronouns, if you remember that we start from third person, then to second person, and then to first person, and from the third person we start with the mead of huwa, huwa, huma, hum, hiya, huma, hunna, the first six forms. And on the other side, the dhamir which are used as mansoob and majroor, we have hu, huma, hum, ha, huma, hunna. So rafa'a will be the first kind of form of the verb at the place of huwa or who. So rafa'a, rafa'a, rafa'u, rafa'at, rafa'ata, rafa'ana, rafa'ata, rafa'tuma, rafa'tum, rafa'ati, rafa'tuma, rafa'tunna, rafa'atu, rafa'na. So our aim is not to conjugate verbs here, but just to remind you the 14 conjugation forms of a verb which go along with those 14 dhamir. So from this rafa'a, quite a lot of words could be made from this root, which is ra, fa, ain. We are going to focus only on these 5 words. which are rafa'a, yarfa'u, raf'un, rafi'un, marfu'un. So these two are fail. This is fail madi and this is fail mudare. Madi is past, which is also called perfect tense in English. Perfect not in the sense that it is flawless, but perfect in the sense that the action has completed in the past. Mudare covers both present and future. It's also called imperfect tense. Masdar is the name of the action of the verb. We have discussed that a little bit in the past. Ismul fa'il is active participle and ismul maf'ul is passive participle in English. So this rafa'a actually means he raised, but that is also taken to mean to raise, which is infinite in English. In English we have infinite, which does not really exist in Arabic. To write, to cycle, to eat, to drink, these are all infinite in English. In Arabic that infinite doesn't exist. This basically really literally means he raised, but this may also be taken as for teaching and learning purposes, to raise. Some people translate masdar, which is raf'un here, as translated as infinite, but this is not really infinite. We know this is the name of the action of the verb. This is also translated as gerund form, ing form, or verbal noun, but really masdar is masdar. And masdar is an abstract concept. I think we've talked about that in the past, which basically means that, for example, if we look at an example, if I say I'm traveling to Edinburgh, so traveling here is present continuous tense. If I say, and it's a verb, and if I say traveling is fun, then traveling is not a verb, it's a noun. And traveling is masdar, kind of masdar. In Arabic we call it safar. So I am at safar. Safar is also used in Urdu, those who know Urdu. Safar kind of translated as traveling, as a noun. And safar is, if I say I'm at safar, which means I'm traveling from one point to another point. And safar is something which you can't see safar, you can't touch safar, you can't smell safar. So safar is something intangible, it's not tangible. And that's what I mean by when I say abstract concept, because it's not a physical entity, it's not tangible. And because it is an abstract concept, it is almost always definite. So that's our masdar in the middle here. So these are two af'al, madi, mudare. We have masdar, which is noun, and we have rafi'un, which is translated ismul fa'il, and this is ismul maf'ul. There's a subtle difference between fa'il and ismul fa'il. Fa'il is the doer of the action of the verb, and clearly ismul fa'il is also doer of the action of the verb. But there is a minor difference, that if there are 5 people in a car, for example, and let's say Hamid is one of them, it is likely that Hamid is going to be the only Hamid in that car, rather than there will be another Hamid. And Hamid is driving, so we will say Hamid is driving. So Hamid is the doer of the action of the verb, which is driving. So Hamid is a specific entity, a specific person. But if we say driver is driving, so any of those 5 persons could be driver, and as long as they hold the driving license, clearly. So so when we say driver is driving, then we are saying, we're using this generic term, which driver could be anybody. But when we say Hamid is driving, Hamid is a specific person. So driver is driving is ismul fa'il, and when we say Hamid is driving, Hamid is fa'il. Let's look at a different way. We can say he helped Hamid. So Hamid in this sentence has now become object, which is maf'ul. It is not fa'il anymore. And when we say he helped driver, then driver, although is maf'ul, no, not fa'il, but driver remains ismul fa'il as well. because ismul fa'il contains the action of the verb in it. So that is the main point. And that's the main difference between fa'il and ismul fa'il. And the similarly is the similar difference between ismul maf'ul and maf'ul. So ismul fa'il is the doer of the action of the verb, and ismul maf'ul is the done to, on which the action of the verb has taken place. So what grammarian, the terminology which they use is that these are 5 parts of the verb. Although these are only, we have one verb here, and these are 3 nouns, these are 3 asma. But we see that Rafa'ain is there here in it. Rafa'ain is in here as well, and Rafa'ain is here as well. So all these words contain verb in them, but only 2 of them are verb, 3 are nouns. So grammarians call this 5 parts of a verb: Rafa'a, Yarfa'u, Raf'un, Rafi'un, and Marfu'un. And when you learn a new verb, you learn all 5 of these parts at once, and then you can have a total mastery on that particular verb. So let us look at an example. She raised her hands to the sky. She raised her hands to the sky. We can translate that as Rafa'a, but because we have used she here, so we'll have to use the 4th form of this verb. Rafa'a, Rafa'a, Rafa'u, Rafa'at, which is feminine. So we'll say Rafa'at yadayha, 2 hands. Yadayha. Ila samai. Ila samai. So that lam. Ila samai. So Rafa'at, she raised her hands. So ha goes back to this file in there, she. So we know that the body parts which are in pairs, they are feminine. For example, hands feminine, arms feminine, feet feminine in Arabic. Nose, because it's single, it's not, there's no pair, that's masculine in Arabic. So because hands are feminine, so ha is used here, and also the feminine part of the verb has been used here. This is basically mudaf and mudaf ilayh. If we look at it closely, this means 2 hands, and ha is mudaf ilayh, and this is jar majroor. So we have 2 murakkabat here. One is murakkab idafi, and other one is murakkab jari. So we should continue to identify these phrases which we have covered on the grammar side of the things. We can also actually say he raised his hands to the sky, and that will be then in this case rafa'a yadayhu. Ha will become hu, ila samai will remain ila samai. Let us look at a Quranic example. I'm just gonna wipe this off to make some space. So the Quranic example is wa iz yarfa'u Ibrahimu kind of, that will be, it should be alif here, but in Quran you don't write, or you have standing up fatha. Ibrahimu qawaida is my pen gone. Ibrahimul Qawaida. Qawaida min al bayti bayti wa Ismailu. Wa Isma. That's again written kind of together in Quran script. Ismailu. So the translation is, remember when Abraham and Ismail raised the foundations of the house, which is Kaaba. So wa is yarfa'u Ibrahimul Qawaida min al bayti wa Ismailu, and that's the ayah number 127 of Surah Baqarah. Qaidun is base, foundation. Qaidun. And Qawaidun is Jama Mukassar, plural. Qawaidun. And because we got al here, so that then this loses the tanween. So al Qawaida, it has been used mansoob here, and when we are going to study verb, we will know why that is the case. So that's the use of rafa'a in raising, so raising the walls, the foundation. And another Quranic example is, wipe that off, Ya ayyuhallazina amanu. It's written like this. Ya ayyuhal. Ya ayyuhallazina amanu. Ya ayyuhallazina amanu. That alif comes here. Right. Ya ayyuhallazina amanu la tarfa'u. La tarfa'u. This alif here. La tarfa'u aswatakum. Aswatakum fawqa sawtin nabiyyi. Fawqa sawtin nabiyyi. That's Surah Hujurat, ayah number 2 of Surah Hujurat. O believers, do not raise your voices above the voice of the Prophet. So here Rafa'a has been used to mean raising voice. Sawtan is voice. And plural Jama Mukassar is aswatun. Sawtun aswatun. So that is an example from Surah Hujurat. So when we use this verb rafa'a in the meaning of raising or elevating something from the ground, or it may not have to be ground, it may be raising something from here to there kind of thing. So its opposite which we use is wada'a. Opposite of rafa'a is wada'a. In this context, in this meaning, raising is wada'a. Wada'a. So the root here is waw, dwad, and ain, wada'a, which basically means to put or to put down, to place, to set, kind of set in place, this opposite of rafa'a. And the 5 parts will be, we can easily on those lines, wada'a and yada'u. Yada'u, this is ain here, and it is masdar is wada'un, and then ismul fa'il is wadi'un, and modu'un, modu'un. So these are the 5 parts of this verb. Here we can see that we can see the root here, waw, dwad, and in full, but here this is the marker of mudari, and we have only dwad and ain, and waw has disappeared, and there is a principle which according to which this takes place. So when we are going to study verb, we will go into details of that. So let us look at an example. Remove that as well. We say, I put my hands on my ears, so I did not hear what he said. I put my hands on my ears so that I did not hear what he said. So we can translate that in Arabic. I put my hands, because it's hands again, feminine, so we're going to use not wada'a, but wada'at. Wada'at. Wada'at yadayhi, my hands. Mudaf mudaf ilayh. Yadayhi ala uznayya. On my ears. Ala uznayya. Fama sami'tu. Fama. This is another fail. Fama sami'tu qawlahu. Whatever he said. It's mudaf and mudaf ilayh again. Qawlahu. So wada'at yadayya, wada'at yadayhi ala uznayya fama sami'tu qawlahu. So that's the use of fail wada'a. And when this wada'a is when we use rafa'a, is used for raising voice, for example, its opposite is not wada'a but khafada. That's khafada, not wada'a. Khafada. The root will be kha, fa, and dwad. So khafada will be to then lower, as compared to raising, to lower, to sink, to let down. That also means to lean. That means to lean on one side, or when it used in that context, to compare, which means compare the sides. So that kind of meanings are in this root. And the five parts are going to be khafada yakhfidu, khafada yakhfidu, and khafdun masdar, khafdun, khafidun ism al-fa'il, khafidun, and makhfudun, makhfudun. These are the five parts of the verb. We can look at a Quranic example, which is wakhfid janahaka. Wakh, kind of alif here, alif, hamza basically. Wakhfid, wakhfid janahaka. واخفض جناحك للمؤمنين written like mu'minina. And that's Surah Hijr, ayah number 88 of Surah Hijr, which basically means this means to clearly to lower. And janahaka, janahun is used for wing. Janahun will be, and because this is janahaka mudaf mudaf alayh, so it's going to lose its tanween here, and it is used mudaf in nasab here, and that's because of the fail. So janahun, and the plural is ajnihatun, so which basically means wing, and wing as in organ of flight, part of an army, part of a building as well. And this is also used to mean side, one edge of something, edge of a rock, for example. And this is how this word is used. So janahaka, so its a literal meaning will be, and lower your wings to believers, and lower your wings to believers. That's a literal meaning, but full meaning will be attend to the believers in kindness. That's one person's translation. Another person's translation is spread the wings of your tenderness over to the believers. So that's the use of the word khafada in lowering as compared to raising. There's another word which is junahun. Junahun. It is a completely separate word from that. Junahun means transgression, misdemeanor, or something wrong, are also used for sin and blame, for example. So this is a totally different word, and it is usually used as a singular. It's actually used as a singular. There's no plural of this. This has got plural. This doesn't have any plural. The plural of this I didn't write. Ajnihatun. Jama mukassar. Ajnihatun. This doesn't have plural. And the part of the ayah is wala ilaykum. write down here. Wala, this is Surah Baqarah's quite long ayah. Wala junaha alaykum. So there is no blame upon you if you do this, this and this. That's quite long ayah of Surah Baqarah. For this word, which is for this root, we have actually Ismul Fa'il and Ismul Maf'ul as well, used in, for example, in Surah Waqia. In Surah Waqia is that إِذَا وَقَعَتِ الْوَاقِعَةُ لَيْسَ لِوَقْعَتِهَا كَاذِبَةٌ خَافِضَةٌ رَافِعَةٌ. So this khafidun, and in the surah it has been used the feminine part, and we know how to make feminine part. We just add ta marbuta, khafidatun. Right, the full ayah. It's very small ayah. Ayah number 3 of Surah Waqia. Khafidatun, which when we read with tajweed we say khafidatur rafi'atun. Rafi'atun, which is the both are feminine forms of khafidun, rafi'un. Here khafidun, rafi'un. That's Ismul Maf'ul. So khafidun, khafidatun, it will be rafi'un here, rafi'atun. And literally that means bringing down, raising up. Basically, because this is file, the one who brings down and the one who raises up. The translations are different, abasing some and exalting others. Somebody has translated as it will bring down some and raise up others. So the translation has been done as if this is a fail verb, and the reason for that is because the verb is in there. This khafada is in there, rafa'a is in there, so it could be translated that way rather than just strictly as Ismul Fa'il and Ismul Maf'ul translation. It could be translated as if the verb is taking place, and that's the main point in these 3 parts of the verb, that the action of the verb is in all of them, and the translation could be slightly different rather than literal translation. In Urdu somebody has translated past karne wali and uncha karne wali, so that's really Ismul Fa'il and Ismul Maf'ul. And if we translate in a verb kind of format, so that would mean it will bring down some and raise up others. So these, you will see different translations, and all translations are correct because it depends what angle they have done the translation. So that's our rafa'a and its opposite words, which we have looked at 2 of these words. And now move on to ansha'a. Ansha'a in the meaning of then to raise clearly, or to create, to establish, and its 5 parts will be ansha'a, ansha'a, and yunshi'u, and insha'un is the masdar. Usually we vocalize masdar in nasa form. So rather than saying ansha'a, yunshi'u, insha'un, it's quite okay to say insha'an, because that's the tradition that verb, this masdar is vocalized in nasab. So in sha, I'm just going to write in rafa, in sha'un, ansha'a yunshi'u insha'un, Munshi'un, munsha'un. Munshi'un and then munsha'un. Munsha'un. So Madi, Mudare, Masdar, Ismul Fa'il and Ismul Maf'ul is a slightly different pattern, because the reason for that is that we have got this extra alphabet here, and that's why there is a reason why it happens. We cannot go into that now. This is the basic form of the verb. This is kind of additional form of the verb, and there is another verb, basic form of the verb, we will look at in a sec. So ansha'a, yunshi'u, insha'un, munshi'un, munsha'un. So really create, to raise, to establish, that kind of meaning. And similar verb, associated verb is nasha'a yunashi'u. Nasha'a yunashi'u. Here Hamza is extra, here Sheen is extra, we can see here clearly. So this again are the basic form. Nasha'a yunashi'u, yunashi'u, and tanshi'atun, tanshi'atun is the masdar. This means to bring up. This means to create, to raise, to establish, etc. This means to bring up. As in bringing up children. So this is basically, and bringing up children does take time. It can take 18 years. This is the pattern of allama yu'allimu ta'limun. So ta'lim doesn't happen overnight. It takes a long period of time. There's another word which is a'lama yu'limu i'lamun. I'lam is something which can happen over a short period of time. For example, if someone asks me how to go to Glasgow from here and from my place, and I will say, okay, take M25, take M1, M6, and M74, and then you will arrive in Glasgow. So that is I'lam. Information is complete. The knowledge has been transferred over. But when we say allama yu'allimu ta'limun, that knowledge is not transferred over that quickly. So that's the difference between these two forms of the verb. This nasha'a yunashi'u, tanshi'atun, to bring up, which basically means raising, as in raising children, bring up children, that kind of thing. Raising a plant, for example, takes a long period of time as well. And the basic form of the verb is nasha'a yansha'u. Nasha'a and yansha'u. Let me write in different color. Nasha'a and yansha'u. Yansha'u, and it has got two masadir, nashu'un. Masdar could be more than one. So nashu'un, and other masdar is nash'atun. And the meaning of this is to grow up. This means to bring up, as in raising, to grow up. So develop personally, to grow up. So basically this is the basic form of the verb. There are only, with C, there are only 3 root letters in here. While this is not the basic form, we've got extra here, Hamza, and we have got extra sheen here in this as well. So this is the basic form of the verb, which is intransitive, which means the action of growing up is taking place on the file itself. So not on anything else. So this is intransitive verb, which is called fail lazim in Arabic. Fail lazim, intransitive. And these two are transitive. The action of bringing up or raising is taking place on another entity. So these are transitive, which is in Arabic is called fail muta'addi. Transitive verb. Fail lazim, intransitive verb. So that's the difference between these two. And this really means nasha'a, yansha'u, kind of related to being raised, to become higher, to be lifted itself, himself or herself, related to raising, rearing, growing, that kind of meaning. And also arising, going up, for example, yourself. Someone else is not doing it. To come up with something, or appear suddenly, become suddenly clear, something like that. So that these are the meanings of this basic form of the verb. Now let us look at some Quranic examples of ansha'a. So not these, but ansha'a. وَأَنْشَأْنَا مِنْ بَعْدِهِمْ أَنْشَأْنَا مِنْ بَعْدِهِمْ قرنًا آخرين and this is Surah An-Am, ayah number 6, which basically means, and we raised up other generations in their places. Ansha'ana, we raised, min ba'dihim, after them or in their place, karnan, villages or generations, other generations, akharin. Okay, so that's one example. Another example is وَهُوَ الَّذِي أَنْشَأَ وَهُوَ الَّذِي أَنْشَأَ. We can put Hamza here, I'll just write Fatha on it. أنشأ وَهُوَ الَّذِي أَنْشَأَ جَنَّاتٍ. Again, this is standing up Fatha. That's the Quranic script. Jannatin ma'rushatin. Jannatin ma'rushatin. Again, ma'rusha. That's standing up Fatha here, rather than writing alif. Ma'rushatin. That's the Quranic script. So this is ayah number 141 of Surah An-Am, the same surah. That's surah number 6, and that's surah number 141. It is He, which means Allah, who has created all kind of plants. Jannatin, gardens, plants, all kind of plants. So here there's a meaning of creation. Here there is a kind of meaning of raising, bringing another generation. Once the one generation has been destroyed completely, one village has been destroyed completely, another has been raised at that place. And this is kind of creation, as in creation of plants, for example. So these are two. There is another very interesting one from Surah Waqia. This ayah number 35 of Surah Waqia. inna ansha'nahunna. Inna ansha'na let's write it, ansha'nahunna na hunna insha'an. Insha'an. Inna ansha'nahunna insha'an. This is 56:35. Surah Waqia, ayah number 35. Inna ansha'nahunna insha'an. We shall create them, hunna. You know, hu, huma, hum, ha, huma, hunna. The sixth dhamir in that chart. Dhamir at number 6 in our chart. So inna ansha'na hunna. Hunna is then lot of women, clearly. So hum, men, hunna, women. Inna ansha'na hunna insha'an. So we shall create them, women, of special creation. This is very interesting. Special creation. Another person has translated this as, we shall have brought them up into being in a life renewed, kind of thing. So clearly this is feminine and it means women. One person has translated, we shall create their wives. Well, okay, the women could be wives. Yeah, that's a possibility. So this insha'an is masdar of this verb, masdar of this fail, and insha'an has been used here as maf'ul mutlaq. There are 5 different types of maf'ul we are going to study on the Arabic grammar side of the things one day, inshallah. And one of them is maf'ul mutlaq. Maf'ul which we have been using up till now, we said Nasara Hamidun Zaidan, Hamid helped Zaid, and Zaid is maf'ul which is the direct object, which is called maf'ul bihi. But this is one of the other maf'uls, so to say. It's called maf'ul mutlaq, kind of stand alone maf'ul. And when masdar is used as maf'ul mutlaq, it is used to emphasize, for emphasis. And a very good example from Quran is Kallamallahu Musa takliman. Kallama yukallimu takliman. Kallama yukallimu and takliman. Takliman. Should be like this. Takliman. So Kallam Allahu Musa takliman. So Allah spoke to Musa. This is masdar, speaking. Here, raising, creating. Literally means speaking. Allah spoke to Musa, speaking. Allah conversed with Musa, conversing. But that's not really what it means. That's a literal meaning. That means, because this is used for emphasis, that really means that really did take place. Allah did speak to Musa. Allah did have conversation with Musa. That conversation really took place. Allah spoke to Musa as people talk to one another. So this was not a dream. This was real. It happened. And it happened as it happens, conversation between two persons. So this is basically for emphasis. And here the emphasis is that we created them, creation or action of creation, which means special kind of creation, very lofty creation or a special creation. That kind of meaning it's going to give. So this maf'ul mutlaq usually is the same, from the same verb used here, or it could be a verb which has got similar meaning, and maf'ul mutlaq will come in that kind of meaning. So that's quite interesting. Now, hunna, clearly women, group of women. And are we talking about, people say hur and wives and etc. Hur is very interesting word. Hur is actually plural. Hur. I'm detracking here. Hur is plural. It's not singular. We know sifa mawsuf. So sifa is a noun which describes another noun, qualities of that noun, which could be positive as well as negative. And then there is something called ism sifa. Ism sifa. Ism sifa will give description of something, an entity, a person, etc., or part of a person, etc. So ism sifa, when it is used in the context of colors and body demeanor or body defects, it could be both body defects as well as the good parts of a body. And when we use ism sifa for that purpose, for colors and bodily elements, it falls on the pattern of, we are familiar with patterns, it falls on the pattern of af'alu. Af'alu. Ism sifa af'alu. This is the pattern. It's going to fall on af'alu. But that is for muzakkar. For mu'annas, the pattern will be, for feminine, the pattern will be fa'la'u. Fa'la'u. And the plural of that, whether it is muzakkar or muannas, will be on the pattern of fu'lun. Fu'lun. Now we have a verb root which is ha, wo, and ra. Ha, wo, and ra. So that will be mazi mudare hawara yahwaru, but it is then written as a hara, or spoken as a hara yahuru. Hara. That wo changes to alif, and there are certain rules which govern that. Hara yahuru, and its masdar is how, kind of hawran. Hawran. And this is used to mean the prominence of the eyes in a way that black is very black and the white is very white. So there's a sharp contrast in the blackness and the whiteness of the eyes. And that's the kind of eye which used to be considered beautiful in that part of Arab. That probably still is the case, I'm not sure. So basically then it means beautiful eyes. Okay, so if we put that hawaro in this pattern, hawaro here, so hawaro will be ahwara, ahwaru here, af'alu ahwaru, ahwaru, which means ahwar. If we stop it here, ahwar, which means a male or a man with beautiful eyes. Okay, and fit that in here, hawra'u, hawra'u, which means a woman or a female with beautiful eyes. And the plural will be of both of these on this pattern, which is fu'lun, hawaro, hurun. So hurun means a lot of men with beautiful eyes, a lot of women with beautiful eyes, but that may also mean a group of lot of men and women with beautiful eyes. And there is a Quranic ayah which is وَزَوَّجْنَاهُمْ بِهُورٍ إِينٍ. wa zawwa, okay, zawwajnahum nahum bihurin inin, bihu, because of this harf jar ba, from hurun it has become hurin, bihurin, and inin, because these are then kind of murakkab tawsifi, so that is also, rather than inun is inin, bihurin inin, and that is Surah Dukhan, ayah number 54. 54. وَزَوَّجْنَاهُمْ بِحُورٍ إِينٍ. One person has translated this as we shall wed them to hurin ainin, he has used, and then in the bracket says damsels with beautiful, big and lustrous eyes. I don't know where the luster has come in it, but that person has translated it. And there's another person who translated this, and we will marry them to fair women with large, in brackets, beautiful eyes. I don't know where the fair has come. There's nothing fair here really to translate fair, and it's quite likely that the fair really doesn't go with that kind of eye. We know the more fair the skin, the eye color generally tends to be lighter, dark brown, light brown, and even then in this part of the word, green and blue eyes kind of thing. But if the color of the skin is darker, then it's very likely that the eye is going to be really black, and there may be sharp contrast between the blackness and the whiteness of the eye. So I'll let you be the judge of that. And finally, there is another root before we call it a day. There is another root which is sheen, ya and hamza. Sheen, ya and hamza. And in this we have sha'a yasha'u. This is changed to alif again here. Sha'a, yasha'u, mudare, yasha'u, and then shay'un or shay'an, masdar. Shay, kind of, we have to add hamza here. Let's write mansub. Shay'an. That's the masdar. This basically means to wish, isn't it? Wish, will, wish, wishing something, that kind of meaning. Wish, will. And in Surah Kaf, ayah number 39 of Surah Kaf is Masha, it's the part of the ayah, Masha Allahu. Ma Sha, written like that. Ma Sha, Ma, then Sha'a, Sha'u has become Sha'a, Ma Sha Allahu. Ma is separate here, this is kind of noun here, and then Sha'a should be written like yeah, that's fine, Sha'a. So Sha'a Allahu, Sha'a, he wished, Sha Allahu, Allah wished. Nasara, he helped, Nasar Allahu, Allah helped. Ma Sha Allahu, whatever Allah wished, or whatever is Allah's will. That's what the meaning of that is, Ma Sha Allahu. If we compare this with that are ansha'a yunshi'u, ansha'a yunshi'u, and then we have masdar insha'an. in Sha'an. And we know this means to raise, to create, to make, to produce, that kind of meaning of this, which is different from Sha'a. The root is different. Root is Noon, Sheen, Hamza, and that is Sheen, Ya, Hamza here. So Ansha'a Yunse'u Insha'un. And when we write Insha Allah, which is the common mistake, that's the point which I want to make. People tend to write it like this, in, and speak that way as well, Insha, and Insha Allah. Okay, so if we focus on this is Insha'un here, which because this is kind of mudaf now, so it has lost its tanween, and this will be then, if we fully vocalize it, Allahi, Insha Allahi. This is totally wrong. This is the kind of kalma kufr really, because we are saying creating Allah or producing Allah or making Allah, which is totally wrong. Okay, so we should not use this masdar here as part of this. Actually it should be in. In is a harf. In means if. It's a harf. It's not a noun, it's not a fail. In. And then sha'a. In sha. Getting messed up here. In sha, like that. Here, insha'a. Then Allah. And then it will be who? Definitely. It can't be he here, because this is fail and this becomes file. And file we know is always marfu. So subject is marfu. So insha'Allahu, as Allah wished, if Allah wished, rather than as Allah wished, if Allah wished. So it definitely should not be written like this, and even when we vocalize it, we should have a little pause here. Inshallah, if Allah wished. Okay, rather than saying inshallah, which we are really saying this rather than this. Insha'Allahu, Insha'Allahu. Little pause there. Insha'Allahu. I hope that was quite useful. Subhanakallahumma wa bihamdika ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk.